Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Irene, and I help run events here at the Strand. For a little bit of history, Strand was founded in 1927 by the Bass family over on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled until after over 92 years, Strand is a sole survivor, still run by the Bass family, still housing new and used books, and running near 400 events a year. Tonight, we're excited to celebrate the Writer's Studio and the release of the Pushcart 44, Best of the Small Presses 2020. This evening, we will be hearing readings from poet and prose writer Lisa Bellamy, poet Chen Chen, short story writer and future novelist Callie Fedoric, poet and prose writer Edward Hirsch, and writer and publisher Diane Williams. In addition to these readings, tonight will be led by Pushcart Prize founder and editor Bill Henderson. Please join me in welcoming them to the Strand.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Andrea Marcusa, and I'm the Reading Series Director for the Writer's Studio, which is presenting this evening's event. Before I begin, I'd like to thank our hosts, the Strand Bookstore. Thank you so much for having us. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Tonight, we're celebrating the 44th edition of the Pushcart Prize, and the featured readers will be by order of appearance, but it could change because we're still waiting for one. Callie Fedoric, Lisa Bellamy, Diane Williams, Chen Chen, Edward Hirsch. A quick word about the Writer's Studio. Founded in 1987 by Philip Schultz, the Writer's Studio is a private writing program which welcomes beginning and advanced students to ongoing writing workshops in fiction, poetry, and memoir. 8-week workshops are offered in New York City, the Hudson Valley, San Francisco, Tucson, Arizona, and online. For more information on our method and workshops, please visit writerstudio.com. If you know of anyone you think might benefit from our classes, please let them know about us. And finally, please silence your cell phones. Now, I'd like to introduce Philip Schultz, founder and director of the Writer's Studio. His latest collection of poems, Luxury, was published last year. Thank you very much. Welcome, Phil.
I want to thank the Strand for having us once again, and I want to thank Andrea for putting all this together. I want to thank also all the wonderful, superb writers who will be reading here tonight. And I want to introduce Bill Henderson. And let me just say two things. One is, the only thing I have trouble with the Pushcart are the Roman numerals. Do you know how hard it is for a dyslexic person to decipher? I mean, I can't remember what the letters stand for, and also you're supposed to subtract the one to the left from the one from the right, and I don't know my right from my left. So it's 44, and you're putting together the 45th. On a more serious and truer note, it is quite a marvelous thing that Bill has done. I mean, besides finding time to write 6 memoirs, wherever I go, I'm always running into the fact that someone has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize. And it is such an incredible source of validation and encouragement and hope for so many young and semi-established and established writers for such a long time, that I don't think, knowing Bill, that he really understands how appreciative so many thousands of people are. We're also very proud, let me say, that Lisa Bellamy, who teaches here, will be reading tonight. Bill Henderson.
Thank you, Phil. I must admit I get confused by the Roman numerals, too. Hello. I get confused by Roman numerals, too. And some year I'm going to mess up and it's going to be terrible. But so many people to thank. I'll just go on forever. Phil, certainly the Writer's Studio, Phil has been so gutsy for so many years to keep the Writers' Studio going. It's hard. And they're going to open a branch in Rome, Italy, pretty soon, I hear, also. So, thanks to W.W. Norton Company, a wonderful company, independent, owned by their employees. We have such an employee here, and Joe Guinness, who's the director of adjunct presses. Where are you, Joe? He's standing up way back there. So I owe so much to Norton for almost 4 decades. I make them no money, and they still return my phone calls. So, and John Baker of Publishers Weekly is here. John, where's John? There he is, John. John put Pushcart on the map. 44 years ago, John was chief in charge of Publishers Weekly and reviews, and not one issue went by without, 1 year went by without a terrific review of the Pushcart Prize. So we owe so much to John. Dan Dolgen is here, my pro bono lawyer. There he is. Keeps me out of jail every year. And also thanks to our readers, Lisa, Chen, Callie, Ed, Diane, and all of you for coming out. This is a terrific crowd. Phil and I have been doing this for, 30 years, something like this. This is one of the best crowds ever. And finally, just to embarrass her terrifically, Meg Charlton is here. Now, Meg was the subject of the introduction to Pushcart Prize number 12. I won't say how long ago that was, but Meg was the just born daughter of my friend Jim Charlton. And now she's here tonight. She just came back from Breadloaf, and she's working on her first novel. And who else? Oh, Lynn Scher is here from ABC, too. We're going to get big broadcasts from ABC. Going to bust up the hearings, I'm afraid. Don't get me started. And just very simply, you got to realize that without the small press movement, that 50 years ago we had no such movement, and none of these works in the Pushcart Prize would have been in print, or almost none, because the people in the publishing world wanted money, and there's not money in this. So we've had a real important revolution in the way things are written. We're not writing from the bottom drawer anymore. We're writing for all of us. As Jane Hirschfield said, the Pushcart Prize is a book made by the entire community of writers for the entire community of writers. It's a group effort, and thousands of writers and editors have helped me through the years. I shouldn't be up here alone, but we can't get that many people in the room. So it's my honor to introduce Callie. Where are you, Callie? Callie's right here. Callie Fedoruk has the lead story. Incredibly accurate, wonderful story in the Pushcart Prize. Callie's been a narrative in the Southampton Review, Sewanee Review, and she lives in Manhattan, where she grew up. And she was named as the 2019 Emerging Writer Fellow, get that, by the Center for Fiction. And she's also on work on her first novel. Good luck, Callie.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Up? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to be reading from the opening of The Arms of Saturday Night. There'd be no traffic on the turnpike, not on Saturday. She could get her dad to drive her to the city, though at the risk of being pushy and insensitive, really, considering the circumstances. But wouldn't some part of him enjoy it in a way? Like, was it not a source of comfort in a time of grief? A welcome sign of life's renewal? The death-proof, scrappy ways of teenage lust? There was this party in the city later, and she had it on pretty good authority, not immaculate, but strong, that Adam Donovan would be there. Adam Donovan, his name, a neon light, electric blue. What was he doing right this second? Adam Donovan. Adam and his dusty smells, the musk of boy world. Adam with his hoodie and his hash pipe and his tool sticker, like her, old soul, child of the ancient 90s. And there was something in his eyes, a certain heft to him, not fat, slow-moving like an animal, quick to spook. And this something made her wiggly-kneed. And this promise of them in some room, or maybe in a car together, soon. This promise had been recently announced. And now it shone for her like Christmas used to, a spun sugar bridge over the brackish of her days. But he was leaving. He was going to California with his friends. She could picture them all a week from now in some Tonto-esque headwear, ensconced in their cocktails of peyote and electrolyte water, boning models in truck beds in the craters of the desert, communing amid night blooms with the very source of life. And he could say, years down the road, I was there. I touched the face of true experience. I, Adam Donovan, touched down in the cradle of the land. And her? Janey fanned the Melba toasts, just so, the way her mother liked. It was her Uncle Murray's wake. Somewhere through the county, the hearse was moving, over hills and viaducts, the corpse inside it, oven-bound. It was the start of a long, hot summer in Montclair, already lethal. They'd beat Dad home to get the roast on. They were expecting 30, maybe fewer. Through lace curtains, they could see him coming now, walking a glacial aunt across the elm-lined street. Her pillbox had a black blotch in the late suburban sun. I think your father's going through a time, her mom said. He looks like he might bust a vein under the weight of the day. So sad, so cordial in his big and tall suit. And it's not just Murray, she said, and started dusting something. Mother often did this, proffered the catnip of grown-up talk, then walked away. Infuriating woman. Janey knew her dad's book of critical essays on semiotics, or technology and the soul, or something, had recently been rejected by the university press. She overheard them in the kitchen the night Murray died. It's an extremely rarefied field you're in, hun. It's LIU, Robbie, not MIT. Robin was her mother's name. I'm not even the best version of the uppity prick they'd have me for. Who? Grief had led him whiskey-ward to maudlin contemplation. He'd been a sore thumb in his Irish-Italian family, all hard-scrabble working men, a professor and former sometime columnist for Newsweek whose career as a public intellectual had been looking, in the past year, pretty private. I should have gone to trade school, Robbie. Electricians, contractors do satisfying work. Me, I feel like I've spent my whole adult life standing in the middle of an intersection trying to play the harp. And all this time I've been saying, it's the traffic that's the problem. It's too loud. I can't focus. But it's not. The problem is the music that's inside of me. It's not good. I think I lost you a while ago, baby. Mom was putting peanut butter on a saltine. An electrician? Remember that time you tried to fix the alternator in the old Civic? That's the point. I can't do anything. He took a slug with some violence. He was not really a drinker, but it must have seemed to him like the type of thing a morning man would do. Mother chewed noisily. John, you're a beautiful man. You want to break your back over a toilet pump, then spend the rest of the day yelling at the Giants? I don't think you'd like that. Maybe right now, the way you feel, you think you would, but you wouldn't. Mom lacked the depressive instinct. She worked in the Bronx DA's office as a counselor to domestic violence victims. She tended to get on with things. They were a good match, actually. Janey could admit this much. She was grateful. Most of her friends' parents were divorced or divorcing or in some kind of arrangement in which one or the other's sexual needs were being quietly outsourced. Well, here we are, Dad said, depositing the very old aunt into an armchair. No one seemed to know who she was. Whose aunt? Where's Mike when you need him? We're going to need to move those tables out. Some more of Murray's friends are coming. The ceremony had gone off mostly fine. Not that it mattered. It was not the royal wedding. Though some of Murray's friends from his motorcycle club seemed a little wild, keyed up like for some hot wings convention, and not a homely, staid, indoor affair. Oh, God. Those rednecks? Make sure you pat them down. I don't think you can say that anymore, Mom, Janey said. What? It was like Altamont in there. Rednecks. Well, that's what they are. I don't like having violent personalities in my house. I think I recognize one from family court. Mr. Tribal face tattoos, more kids than teeth. You know the one. Janey knew she wasn't being elitist. She was genuinely offended by their perceived lack of gentleness. They were his friends, Robin. Dad, on the other hand, knew a few of Murray's pals from high school, and he seemed to get a kick out of being taken back. Janey couldn't square it at all, the cautious man who'd raised her with that picture on the mantel. Her father, aged 18, head-to-toe leather, a heavy metal zealot with a gaze that could kill. Her parents, though she loved them, struck her as hopelessly soft-core. They were not Jersey strong. They were the type of people who, 20 years before, could have found a place in Manhattan, clung on for dear, rent-controlled life, struggled, sure, but remained in the mix where the action was, but they'd been squeezed out of that deal. She guessed this was what her civics teacher, Mr. Pecoris, meant by the death of the middle class. They prided themselves on being subtler than their neighbors, but lacked what their neighbors had: identity, charisma, money. They listened to NPR sometimes, but their hearts weren't really in it. They had no unifying piety to God or sports or any of their many motherlands. At Montclair High, she felt apart. There was a small subset of Edge of County people, the children of tradesmen, some from as far away as Kosovo or El Salvador, for whom every day in America must have been a fist in the face, a gut-punch struggle to adjust and survive. And they got on, but on the weekends stayed in their lane, she and hers. Nor could she relate to the genetic wealth of most of her friends, the shiny-haired and curiosity that blessed the rich, rolling up to school in their Land Rovers and massive, pristinely white sneakers, gum-snapping girls, figures honed on the regional gymnastics and jazz dance circuits, their McMansion and boat-owning, philandering fathers, their tracksuit-wearing, dipsomaniac mothers. But she was generalizing. Taylor Palermo had a dolphin-shaped fountain in her front yard that might have been a coon's, Dad said, if not for the total absence of irony. All of a sudden, the living room was a sea of black. Everybody started pouring in, the Jacksons and the Tetrazinis and the Wrights and the Farragut's. Who'll join me? Her dad's best friend, Mike, started on his Rob Roy's. She wished she could get loaded, that there was someone her age to conspire with to this end. Her parents had patted the occasion with their neighbors and some of Dad's colleagues. It was strange to Janey, watching them all, how nothing could be more radical, more awe-inspiring, really, than someone dropping dead. And yet people were often at their most perfunctory at an event built explicitly around the fact of doom. It just seemed like a waste of Murray's memory, of the cocktail napkins, of the possibilities of language. There was no love, no vibes. There was nothing to talk about, least of all him. Everyone would drink responsibly, talk superficially, then go home. She just wished they would do it, soon. I'm just going to read a couple, if I can read just a couple minutes from the beginning of something new called Hometown Hero. Jimmy couldn't tell if they were taking the piss out of him. The director was all of 26, fresh out of film school, a slippery-ass beta male with a handshake like cold cuts, and snotty too, name-checking auteurs from Japan when all he'd done so far was a couple episodes of Young Sheldon. And he hated guys like Jimmy, you could tell. Wouldn't look him in the eye at all. Almost snickering when Jimmy made suggestions, like he was out of his depth, a lunkhead, the last survivor of some dumb, dishonored race. And Jimmy half wanted to make a scene, smack that ring right from his septum, hold it up all bloody, tell him, bow down, son, you hipster shit. You think you're better than me? Huh? Smarter than me? You think? But no. Deep breaths, Jimmy. Deep breaths. They'd been making a hype video for Jimmy's comeback tour, the Dinkfest of the century, as it turned out, and twice as many hangers-on and helpers out and backstage handlers yakking in his face as were people in the audiences, and he was mad as hell about it, Jimmy was. Now they had him at a Borders at a Galleria somewhere, the last stop of the tour, and not enough uppers in the whole heartland to smooth him out. In the makeup chair, one of the assistants smeared some purple crap all over his face. Light-correcting primer, she explained. Nice girl. But no, don't even think about it, Jimmy. Plus shadow, contour, and concealer, which Lord knows he needed after the nights he'd been having. Nothing crazy, just some Vicodins and those pizzas with the hot dogs not just on top, but in the crust. doomsday food. But what the hell else was there for him to do? And where were they again? Omaha? Toledo? There were copies of his book he was meant to sign for inventory, a heavily ghost-written memoir of adversity and triumph, and just the picture of himself on the cover, clutching the pigskin, blue-stealing it like a jerk, 20 pounds lighter with his buff guns and his fat, derpy head, staring just beyond the camera out at what? His crumbling empire made him want to set himself on fire. He was a fraud, a snake oil artist, a racketeer of hope. All the people who had come to see him through the years, who had cheered him on in stadiums, bought his jerseys and his protein powders, made him famous, he had duped them all. He'd stopped believing his own gospel. Buck up, clean your room, go forth and conquer. Your best days are ahead of you. But they weren't. People were incurable. He was incurable. Maybe they found themselves for a little while, broke the vicious cycle, found Jesus, cut out nightshades, got out of a toxic relationship. Toxic, by the way, was the word that seemed to really sell them, and he had used this word so much and believed it, to make it seem like whatever you were trying to get away from was a discrete thing, clear-edged, with its own stench and matter, when it was you. It was all up in you, coded in your DNA, and good luck getting rid of it without blowing the whole thing apart. No, people felt good for a little while, and then they felt bad again. Back from the Bahamas, ready to jump out of your skin. Your days in paradise, days of peace, no more deeply absorbed than some Corona ad on the side of the expressway. And so what? The world was burning anyway, and you couldn't do anything right by any of them. All the haters out there, hating. Why not spin out? Go mad. Behave badly. Eat and drink for tomorrow. Jimmy? It was Stella, his agent. Let's hurry up. You're due in 20. What the fuck is with your face? You know we can't handle another scandal. This was the makeup artist. It's just we thought some bronzer might help, with it's slimming. Take it off, seriously. Do you have one of those wipes? There's no amount of makeup's gonna undo nightly choco churros. I think I'll stop there. It just keeps going. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have the pleasure of introducing Lisa Bellamy. Lisa grew up in Wisconsin and lives in Brooklyn and the Adirondacks. She is a writer's studio student and teacher and a researcher for the National Episcopal Church. Her poetry collection, The Northway, was published in 2018 by Terrapin Books. Her earlier chapbook is titled Nectar. Please welcome Lisa.
Whoa. There, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Oh, that was so smart and funny. Thank you. I want to read your story again. Where were you born? I was born from molten song. My mother was Pele, volcano goddess. Blessed are the fruits of her irascible womb. She spewed and I fell into filings where my foster parents found me. 50% off, no refunds, no returns. I was born in the land of ice and snow, where I slipped and fell, hill after hill. No one suggested crampons, and I was angry, but I cooled. And now my trade is ice cutter. Ostensibly, I was born in Wisconsin, but who says I did not ride in on the back of the huge green and brown spotted turtle that masquerades as Isle Royal in Lake Superior? In truth, I was born in clouds and sadness, nothing less or more, gulping milk sprayed from the breasts of Cassiopeia. That was just published. A version of it was part of Every Atom, Reflections on Walt Whitman at 200 in North American Review. It's a wonderful project, and there's tons of good stuff, so definitely check it out. Life is Lucy. This is in the Northway. The famous poet misheard my name when we met. Lucy, she asked, as I introduced myself. My ears perked up like an eager dog off the leash, hearing the beloved friend call her name, suddenly alert amidst the city's distraction and babble. Fragrant pigeons just out of reach, sirens, couples growling face to face on the street. There's nothing soft or vague about Lucy. Lucy's a dachshund digging under a rose bush Grandma planted, salivating for tasty mole scraps, ignoring cries and folded newspaper swatting behind her. Lucy's a bookie, sporting a pork pie hat, cigar clamped in her mouth. She's running on spit, playing the odds for more time to make good on her bets. Lucy is Bucky. You're getting Bucky again, my mother would say. Brown silky hair chopped at the ears, bangs cut razor straight, jaw set, lower lip ready for battle. 7, fringed cowgirl suit, cap pistols, ready to draw from my holster. She met stubborn, dug in, as in, no, I won't eat the creamed corn, like my childhood guru, Peter Rabbit, canny model of spiritual development, who, refusing a life of deprivation, pathetic nose pressed to the fence, smashed constraints of class and birth, feasted without regret on all the French beans, lettuce, and radishes he could eat. Lucy, meaning light or radiance, bright with righteous rage for newborns, whose eyes, opening in wonder, flinch in pain and confusion as nurses drop silver nitrate into their eyes. Yes, I'm anointed, but no, I will not stop to shovel manure. I follow those who party with thieves and tax collectors, drunkards carrying torches into the bridal chamber. Those with eyes to see, let them see. Yes, I will pick up the slack, but no, I will not wait for the kingdom. No, I will not save the best for the last. I am the first and the last. I am burning, a 10,000-year filament. At daybreak, I shook hands with Ezekiel. He said, "Girl, you're doing just fine." Our fathers. Our fathers never spoke to us of their wars. Each morning they girded their loins with tool belt and slide rule according to their appointed trades. In the summer, as they backed out our driveways, we ran after them. In the winter, they left whistling as we slept. They created Japanese-style goldfish ponds, built backyard gazebos, sang barbershop harmony, strummed mandolins, ukuleles, but refused to call themselves makers of beauty. They woke us at midnight to see the aurora borealis, carried us out to rose and white light waves streaming, named for the goddess of dawn who brings life, and the god of the north wind who brings death. Our fathers grew restless. They started to pace, walked outside to gawk at the stars. When we asked, "Can we come?" they said no. When we asked why, they said hush. Our fathers stopped kissing our mothers. They came home midday, fired, laid off, warned for swearing at the foreman, said they were sick unto death. They slammed screen doors, bedroom doors, shed doors. Our fathers started to drink. They stood up from couches, pushed dogs that nosed them, stumbled outside, yodeling. They said they felt bigger than the sky. They drank in bomb shelters, garages, the Legion Post, watching TV. They drank, driving us to scouts, bottles between their knees. They drank when we begged them not to and when we tried to ignore them. Sometimes they slammed us against walls, sometimes said they were sorry. One by one, our fathers left. Sedans, vans, pickups, hitchhiking, walking to the bus stop. They left in the morning as we sat, silent, at the kitchen table eating cereal before breakfast. We watched them with their suitcases. They left goodbye notes for us to find after track practice. They left at night after fights. Some stayed but stopped talking, or they faded, eyes rolled back, clutching their heart. Others left over time from their wasting diseases. Our fathers said they would never forget us. They said they loved us, and we believed them. Okay, so I think I'll read Note to the Caretaker. We spend time in the Adirondacks, and we have negotiated various discussions and had candid, frank discussions with some of the creatures up there. So this has to do with that. Note to the Caretaker. Tonight we drive back to the city. In our absence, please negotiate a final settlement with the mole. We concede all territory from the driveway to the garage, and trust this meets with his satisfaction. We have acted in good faith. We coped with his repeated tunneling despite the injunction. We coped with his refusal to schedule daytime meetings. We rose at midnight with flashlights for conferences while he hid behind a bush and spoke through intermediaries. I understand he must live and work in isolation, and I know he cannot cease his digging, for his claws are godly spades, and dirt his pleasing material, and he knows his dirt contains nutrients, i.e. organic matter, for his art, shredded entrails, scraps of fur on bone, broken teeth, tears, and spit. He knows his dirt remains malleable, and no one should confuse it with filth. In dirt he can freely breathe and reoxygenate his air. In dirt the Holy Spirit blows through him. Behind him as he digs, he creates mounds, and many are the mounds built for the glory of his God. He is grateful for the velvety fur in which he slides through his tunnel, and his objection to fracking is 100% pragmatic. For he is an earthworks artist in the style and tradition of his clan, vain only in the matter of his tail. He will twist his neck backward to admire it. He is furious in his concentration, for his craft he knows is essential for the earth to circle the sun. When he works day and night in one pointed samadhi, he neither eats nor sleeps. Okay. Two more. I'm going to read Ezekiel. I have a huge crush on Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, and I wrote this and thought of him. I will send the rain of authority, rain to chase the devil back to hell, smeary goose shit rain, rain of snarling martins, rain of mud and tar, rain dissolving his steel to dust, rumors of war rain, rain to trigger the devil's disgust, his worst nightmare rain, stalwart rain, faithful rain. I will send the rain of warrior babies, tiny swords, righteous crying. I will send flummoxing rain, rain drenching his minions, spiritual rain, warfare rain. I will send rain in it for the long haul, rain biding its time, rain beyond his pay grade, Matahari rain. I will send slain in the spirit rain, Holy Ghost rain, prophecy rain, Om Shanti Shanti rain, no tweeting rain, turn off the TV rain, impeachment, no, not just impeachment, but conviction rain, doing hard time rain, rain to scour the demon stink, rain of purification, everlasting white birch rain, God help me rain. I will send blasting rain. Beat it, I will say. Scram, I will say, be gone. Last poem I'm going to read is Wild Pansy, which appeared in Pushcart. So thank you very much. Thank you, Writers Studio. Thank you, Pushcart. And thank all of you. Wild Pansy. As a seed, I was shot out the back end of a blue jay, when, heedless, she flew over the meadow. She had swallowed me in my homeland when she spied me lying easy under the sun. Briefly, I called her mother before I passed through her gullet like a ghost. In a blink of God's eye, I was an orphan. I trembled where I fell, alone in the dirt. That first night was a long night, early May and chilly, and I remember rain filled my furrow. I called out for mercy. Only a wolverine wandered by. I cursed my luck. I cursed the happenstance of this world. I smelled his hot stink, but he knows me deep into the mud. This was the gift of obscurity. I germinated, hidden from the giants of earth, the jostling stalks, boisterous bloomers, and this was my salvation. After 7 days and nights, I pushed through. Yes, here I am, kissable, your tiny purple profusion. Thank you. Diane Williams. Diane Williams is the author of 9 books of fiction, including the collected stories of Diane Williams, out in paperback this fall from Soho Press. She is also the founder and editor of the literary annual Noon, the archive of which, as well as Williams' personal literary archive, was acquired in 2014 by the Lilly Library. She is a recipient of 4 Pushcart prizes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Bill Henderson. I salute you. And your wonderful, wonderful project, which has meant a lot to me. Can you hear me now? The project, Pushcart, has meant the world to me for nearly 30 years or more. So I'm going to read some stories from my collected works, and the last of which appeared in the recent Pushcart Prize. The first one is All American, because I think we're all thinking about what that means these days. It's very painful. So I feel patriotic when I read this one. The woman who is me, why pretend otherwise? Wants to love a man she cannot have. She thinks that is what she should do. She should love a man like that. He is inappropriate for some reason. He is married. When she thinks of the man, she thinks force. And then whoever has the man already is her enemy, which is the man's wife. The woman makes sure the man falls in love with her. She has fatal charm. She can force herself to have it. Then she tells the man she cannot love him. In return, she says, you are in the camp with the enemy. Of course, the woman knew the man was sleeping with the enemy before she ever tried to love him, and the word enemy gives joy, the same as I get when the wrong kind of person calls me darling, as when my brother says okay to me, goodbye, darling, before he hangs up the phone after we have just made some kind of pact, which is what we should do, because I have to force myself on the ones I am supposed to love, and then I have to force myself on the ones I am not supposed to love. I got my first glimpse of this kind of thing when I was still a girl trying to force myself on my sister. I did not know what I was doing until it was obvious. We were in the back seat of the family car. The car had just been pulled into the garage. The others got out, but we didn't, and I thought I was not done with something. Something was not undone yet, something like that. And I was trying to kiss my sister, and I was trying to hug my sister, and she must have thought it was inappropriate. Like, what did I think? I was a man and she was a woman. I must have been getting rough because she was getting hysterical. I remember I was surprised. I remember knowing then that I was applying force and was getting away with it. To die. I undressed myself. I wanted sex. I wanted sex. I wanted sex. I wanted sex. I climbed into bed with my wife. She wanted sex with me. She always wants sex with me. When I discharged myself this time into her, I was feeling myself banging as high up into her as I have ever gotten myself up into her. I had just done the same with another woman who always wants sex with me too. There is another woman that I do the same with. There is another woman. There is another woman. There are 5 women who always want sex with me. They are always ready. It does not matter when or what or where, but they are ready. I have a great deal of money which I have earned. I have physical beauty for a man. I have intelligence. I have work to do, which I love to do. But women are what I prefer to anything. To lie down with them and turning to touch the woman, and knowing I will be received for sex as soon as I wish to be welcome. I have been at it like this way for years. It does not matter when I will die. I have had everything I have ever wanted. I should die now. There should be a killing at my house. There should be much, so much more for me, which I am not able to conceive of. Thank you. I find that very rousing myself. This one, some people don't like, but I do. So I don't know. I don't know what you'll think. Okie doke. The man lied is the best ingredient in my veal steak deluxe. I'm going to vacation in the man lied. I will never the man lied for the third time. I the man lied that's wonderful and exciting, and I look forward to it. He is telling me how many the man lied he has to have in a day. I expect to the man lied blood. The man lied, I have never seen the man lied like that one. On the man lied, when some chicken and a potato were roasting in my oven, I would not leave the man lied. I'd like to tell the man lied how many orgasms I had in a day. The man lied was sure I was hearing a waterfall, but what I heard was the grinding of the man lied. Thank you, you're all so kind, really. I'm moving forward in time. This is all of my works over the last 30-some years. So I don't know which era it is, but somewhere in the middle. The source of authority. A sad story I heard is that I have to have someone take care of all of the bothersome aspects of my life, tooth, leg, wrist, vein. It feels so unsexual to complain, but when the weather is bad, I go walking. I wander about, but I go to the lake because I believe the lake is better than I am, and I want to be in good company. Its beauty, its success, its remote aspect, its inability to speak hints at intelligence and virtue more pure than mine, better. The lake means something. I rub the lake and my veins wriggle. I try to make a few things real. There is so much silver. Occasionally the lake looks at me coldly, which gives me the creeps. I have had no subsequent conversation with it. We speak about nothing, I tell myself. On the shore, to myself, I say, do you really need all this? It's so crowded. Do you really need all this? I'm trying to be independent. Is that wrong? Forward another 12 years or something. Flower. He is the only one you will sleep with, and you two will consult with each other about everything, her father said. Go live with him. He will welcome you. I am certain. Do you want to be rich? Her father said. Yes, she said. I'm sure. Susan, said the father. Yes? He said, to get that nipple to stand up, squeeze it. Stand. My friend said, I fell in love with the neighbor. I said, your husband fell in love with the neighbor? My friend said, no. She said, I fell in love with the neighbor. She was counting her fingers. She said she couldn't get the neighbor's penis to do anything. As a matter of fact, I couldn't get his penis to do anything either. It hung like a mop, or it had a life of its own. How it came up in the first place, I don't know. He couldn't get my vagina, I wanted to say, to utter a word. But since one should always make room for fun, we all ate food and we laughed. The last time I saw my friend was when she was finishing her drink, gulping. Was it like the sound of the sea, perhaps? How the sea very slowly and with great effort laps, but does not go down, I want to say, in one gulp. The last time I saw my friend's crepe de chine skin, her frizzy hair, her dark breasts that wriggle raw, I said to myself, "You had enough?" Human being. Now I have a baby boy and a 5-year-old girl. Being married, I thought I'd always be married to Wayne because he tried to be perfect. What more could he ask for? This is the last one, and it's the one that's in the current Pushcart Prize. It's recent. Oh, it's one of my news stories. Here it is. The important transport. Otto told me that our opportunity had been squandered and that I should have felt compelled to contribute something. He said, "It's too bad you don't understand what's happening here." And I saw that it was true, that I had failed to do my best. This was to be our short interregnum, how to proceed next. That morning, the wake-up radio music alarm had been set, but the volume knob had been wrenched by somebody, counterclockwise, full on. My first thought was that the window must be open and that the wind had caught at the blinds and that it was blowing across the fins, the slats rather, and that they were vibrating and causing this tremendous sound before it dawned on me that this blast was something other, and it made me afraid. And where did Otto go? He was missing, and the window was indeed open, and a small breeze lightly batted the Venetian blinds' lift-cord tassel against the wall. In an hour, he was back again, and the look on his face was one of gratitude, and to add to this comforting effect, he smiled. "Where did you go?" I asked. "Kay," he said, "that's my name. You're all I have. Where did you go?" "Do you like it here?" he said. "No, I don't like it here. Why should I?" I know, he said. "Some water?" He had to walk and to walk, to go such a short way, it seemed, to get that for me. We had another such dialogue the next day. "Do I have to say?" he said. "Yes, Suzette." "Oh, Suzette," I said. Later on, he married the young girl. I have had to wait for my own happiness. I married Eric Throssell, who is a good companion, and I thought I was very happy when we finished supper one night. But the more important transport occurred en route to Long Grove while I was driving. Eric spoke, and his words, I don't remember them, but thank God they served to release the cramping in my neck and in my shoulders and my back, and they provided for an unexpected increased intake of oxygen. And can we leave it at that? Thank you very much. And it's my pleasure to introduce Chen Chen. He is the author of When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Further Possibilities, which was longlisted for the National Book Award and won the Tom Gunn Award for Gay Poetry, among other honors. His work appears in many publications, including Poetry and the Best American Poetry. He has received fellowships from Kundiman and the National Endowment for the Arts. And currently he teaches at Brandeis University as the Jacob Siskind Poet in Residence.
Hi. Okay, great. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. My bus was super late. So sorry. So I'm gonna read the poem that's in the anthology, and then just 2 other newer poems. So the one that's in the anthology is kind of weird. I guess all poems are weird. So it's in 4 sections, and the first section starts with a long pause. I'll just do a short pause, and you'll fill in the rest of the pause. And if you remember to do that, because the title is quite long. It's called 4 Short Essays Personifying a Future in Which White Supremacy Has Ended. 1. Therefore, 2. I walk, chewing bubblegum, which should make a happy feeling, bubbly me. But I am busy considering how to personify is to make a person out of feelings, and not necessarily to make more personable. Again, I tap on the window of feeling unseen, and the window refuses to personify me. See, some people are not yet personified, while trees often are, and the birds in poems, and the pets of white people most often. And the present refuses to personify into a future of bubbly walking. Yet, to person is to feel, and necessary. So, I read a friend's poem in which the word emotionality feels out for me in the middle of our unseen. In fact, I feel the word sounds clunky. Then again, aren't actual feelings clumsy? And within our unbubbly, I sound out a clumpy, a cracked exhaling. I will feel 3. So healed when white people finally shut up about that one time they went to Asia and felt so spiritual and healed. For poetry should not be therapy, poets say. Though still I feel that some would prefer me to therapize them with yummy feelings of migrant tragedy, fix them up a fixed dictator and dumplings past, never to walk into a future of unpersonable feelings. For to feel is to window, and to person is to people a feeling, a future in which, for this future walks, unpersonifiable. Because what, who, is a person in these windows now? I told you it was weird. Where did the other poems go? Okay. Yeah, this is called The School of the Unschoolable. See the stars, nightly disobeying the night. Watch the pattering rain sketch an anarchist map to the future, then unpattern it away. An anarchist revision. Praise my mother, who wears a plaid hoodie over a polka dot sweater, over a simply brown sweater. Praise your fashion icon, though I doubt she's as iconoclastic. Prove my doubt so wrong. Called the sun the heterophobe it's always been. Never stop babbling to old friends or fields about your earliest whiff of banana bread. lick the sea's silver laugh, and on a Tuesday, flabbergast in some earthly mouthful of a way, and tonight. And this last one, let me see, let me pull it up better. So I was writing these poems that in one way or another reference seasons and had just seasons for titles. A lot of them summer, a lot of them winter. I started writing them when I was living in West Texas, and it felt like those were the only 2 seasons. I'd grown up in Massachusetts, so the very long summer was strange to me. It felt very static. So then eventually I wrote an autumn and spring poem, and then I wrote this, which is it's called Summer, Autumn, Winter, Spring. I pushed my face toward the sleeping radiator. I smelled a form of justice. I wanted to be a poet. I waved my living hands, dead coupons. I watched him brush his teeth. His teeth glinted, gorgeous. I stumbled, cartwheeled. I said, I will always fight alongside you in the fight against Tartar buildup. I said, I will. I said, thank God, without believing in thanks. I thought what my parents did, those weren't poems. I believed what white people said about my parents. I had to say, stop believing them. I suckled, pickled, made mistakes about octopi, wore a blue jockstrap and took pictures. Accepted stickers of astounded apples from friends. I was a wind smooching all these other winds. I was a name everyone in America thought they were saying right. Even he thought so. Then asked, is that right? I pushed my face toward the noisy radiator, its clang and labor and here. In bed I touched his voice and his belly. I touched his good night. He said it always like it was important. It was important. I believed in the silver millennium. I said, Sailor Neptune, one day, a poem for you. I said, Sailor Neptune, teach me the deep submerged, the submarine reflection, the thunderously turquoise hair. I was a name in America and would forget I belonged to my teeth. I dropped a single wish down the cavernous mailbox. He would ask, is that right? He would bring a single microwave donut on a blue napkin at dusk. He would leave me alone with my poems. Oh, if I could lick all your toes at once, I would write that poem. I loved him, I told him. I loved him, so told him about the dream. The dream starred my parents, stars of a death metal band's debut music video. They danced like everyone was watching. It was important. Their arms were poems. They said, so what if we misspell auditorium? So fucking what? We'll always say your name right. They pushed their faces toward me, their poems toward me. They leapt and thrashed. They were stars, stars, stars. I woke up weeping. Do you understand? I thought I could only fall asleep doing that. Thank you. And it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce Edward Hirsch, a MacArthur Fellow who has published 9 books of poems and 5 books of prose. His new collection, Stranger by Night, will be published by Knopf in February. Thanks.
Very glad to be with you. Delighted to read for the Writers' Studio. Honored to be in Pushcart. The furious commitment and lifelong vision that it takes to run the Writers' Studio and to put the Pushcart together is really extraordinary. And it has a kind of element of foolhardiness. It also has a quality of just something that has just been absolutely transformative for American literature in general and American poetry in particular. My friends don't get buried. My friends don't get buried in cemeteries anymore. Their wives can't stand the sadness of funerals, the spectacle of wreaths and prayers, tear-soaked speeches delivered from the altar, all those lies and encomiums, the suffocating smell of flowers filling everything. No more undertakers in black suits clutching handkerchiefs, old buddies weeping in corners, telling off-color stories, nipping shots. No more covered mirrors, black dresses, skull caps, and crucifixes. Sometimes it takes me a year or two to get out to the backyard in Sheffield or Fresno. Those tall ashes scattered under a tree somewhere in a park, somewhere in New Jersey. I am a delinquent mourner stepping on pine cones, forgetting to pray. But the mourning goes on anyway because my friends keep dying without a schedule, without even a funeral, while the silence drums us from the other side. The suffocating smell of flowers fills everything, always. The darkness grows warmer, then colder. I just have to lie down on the grass and press my mouth to the earth to call them so they would answer. The black dress. I don't know why I opened her book almost randomly on a whim. It signaled me from the shelf after all these years, like a burning black dress tangled in the branches. Her dress. She was the one who was burning. And that's when the letter fell out. A love letter, sort of, after we'd given up on each other. Or did we? Our impossibility. And suddenly it came back to me in a rush. That night in Boston, a restaurant on the harbor, a storm simmering outside, that slinky black dress she was wearing. I didn't know she was burning inside of it. I thought it was the coming storm, summer lightning. I didn't know I was turning the pages of her book, her body, which I would read so closely. I wanted it so desperately. She was the fire. I didn't know she was already mourning for her childhood in the orchard, her lost self. Forgive me, I didn't know she was burning when she took off that black dress. This is the poem that I'm honored to have in the Pushcart. It's called That's the Job. That's the job, he said, shrugging his shoulders and running his hand through his hair like Dante, or a spider that knows its web. That's just the job, he repeated stubbornly whenever I complained about working the night shift in 100-degree heat, or hauling my ass over the hump for a foul-mouthed dispatcher yelling at us over a loudspeaker, or riding the cab of an iron dungeon creeping over bumpy rails to a steel mill rising out of the smog in Joliet or Calumet City, where we headed to track down a few hundred giants in chains clanking together on rusty wheels for dragging home and uncoupling at the clearing yard, loaded with empty freight cars, waiting to be loaded with more freight, because that's the job. The brakeman. He had a metal plate welded into the right side of his head from a drunken bar fight that he lost one night in '63 outside the clearing yard, where he taught me how to separate freight cars at the top of the hump and switch them onto different tracks, chasing the runaways and scampering up the ladder to set the brakes and stop the bastards in their tracks, parking their bodies in the rust-colored air long enough to recouple, reroute, and reload them for shipping to Iowa or Nebraska or Colorado, the state of his retirement, the wide-open country where it's possible to see for hundreds of miles and think clearly again and breathe like a free man in the mountains. The Radiance, Detroit, 1984. Late September in the shade outside of State Hall, that concrete brutality, where my students are smoking off a hangover and gossiping in Ukrainian, while Dan Hughes leans on his walker and talks to me about Shelley's bright destructions. I did not know it was indelible. The sun spangling the campus trees, the traffic thickening the smog outside the museum on Woodward, our voices rising. When you tell the story of those years going up in flames, don't forget the radiance of that day in autumn, burning out of time. I'm going to read you two more poems. The Iliad and the Odyssey. I mean, you're here. Stranger by Night. After I lost my peripheral vision, I started getting sideswiped by pedestrians cutting in front of me almost randomly, like memories I couldn't see coming as I left the building at twilight, or stepped gingerly off the curb, or even just crossed the wet pavement to the stairs descending precipitously into the subway station. And I apologized to every one of those strangers, jostling me in a world that had grown stranger by night. Finally, a baker swept by. You were already losing your eyesight last winter in Rome when you paused in the doorway at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and a baker swept by on a shiny bicycle, waving a cap and singing under his breath. You didn't know bakers wore white aprons dusted with flour and floated around the city like angels on a freshly baked day. You weren't sure why morning halted up and down the street as you stood in the doorway and a baker winged by on a weekend morning so new and pristine that you looked into the sky, and for one undiminished instant of misplaced time, you saw brightness everywhere, before a shadow crossed the rooftops and it was blotted out. Thank you.
Well, I want to just thank everybody for coming tonight, and thank you very much for reading our readers. It was so incredible to have you all here. There's going to be a book signing directly after this event right here, so if you have a book and you want it signed, and there's also books for sale there if you'd like to purchase some books and have them signed. So please come on up, and thank you again for coming.